Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Ellis. I'm a psychologist, psychotherapist, and Buddhist scholar. And on this podcast, I usually discuss psychological topics, problems of self-development, and sometimes also topics that are concerned with meditation. Today, because of the ongoing war in Ukraine, I wanted to dedicate a short recording to the topic of how to talk to children about war. You can find a lot of information online. I somehow collected it and want to add some of my own notes. So if you have children, if you have children in your household and you're not very sure about how to approach the topic of the war that probably most of the children in one way or another became aware of, then here are some background information and tips that might be worth of your consideration. I prepared some slides, which you will see now instead of my face. I hope this is more informational. To start off, the question of how do children in general process complex information, and this serves as a background to basically then align the information that I have that I somehow separated in a few age groups. The younger the children are, the more simple they process complex information and emotional information. When they see attention around them, if the parents are tense, then they usually would think that it's something about them, that they as children did something wrong, or they might take it up they might take up the task to try to cheer their parents up, because for them it's difficult to see their parents' intention and they might want to do something about it. Obviously, this is not something that we want to get, especially our younger children, to get into. And this is why it's important not to show how emotionally tense we as adults are. The older the children get, the more we can let them in our complex thoughts about both the war and the possible impact that it has on us. But the younger they are, let's say preschool age, the less we should burden them with emotional information. The information should be given in a secure, safe way that is more factual, in a simple way, and less showing that we ourselves are very concerned, panicking, sad, worrying about our safety, and so on. So when you express emotions, give the information age appropriately, because otherwise, like I said, the children will fill in the blanks with their interpretation. They will try to read the room, and more often than not, they will read the room wrongly, which means they will exaggerate what they see and the tension that they perceive, and they will not be able to well distinguish. They will perceive correctly that something is off, that something is wrong, but they have little understanding of the measure, if there is actual danger for their parents, if there's actual danger for them, and they will create some sort of narrative that is more or less off from reality. And since parents are the most important source of interpretation, because they are the most important source of safety, they will look especially at their parents and try to read and understand them. Be also aware that no matter how old the kids are, you are not the only source of information. If they go to kindergarten, they will hear something from other children. They might hear something from the kindergarten nurse. Maybe the kindergarten has a policy of giving some information to the children. Of course, the older the children get, the more they will be informed by schoolmates, teachers, their own access to phones and media, and so forth. Let's first take a look at children up to the age of 6. Roughly, so preschool. Here it's important to see if the child itself is somehow nervous or anxious. Maybe it got some information from somewhere, or it picked up a vibe and is because of that concerned. If the child shows no signs of nervousness, anxiousness, doesn't ask questions about what is wrong or something about war or anything like that, the general recommendation is not to bother them, because then they have not heard anything specific, and then it's not necessary to burden them with the information. If, however, which might be more or less likely depending on where you live, I myself live in Warsaw and Poland, and I find it difficult to imagine that 5 or 6 years olds will not have heard anything. If they definitely have heard about the war, if they show some signs of nervousness, then you should go to the child and talk to them. Keep in mind again that information can come from kindergartens. Keep in mind that the information that you give them, your children will relate to other children. So be mindful of that, and also not to give them polarizing information, not to simplify and say Russians, but more, the Russian government or the Russian leader, because we don't know if there may be, Russian parents or Russian children in the kindergarten. And of course, we don't want to somehow contribute to an escalating situation because of an oversimplification of information that we give to the children. When you talk to the children, again, at this age group, keep information to a minimum. They will not be able to handle the complexity of who attacked when, what the exact situation is, how many refugees, and so forth. This is something that older children can be more and more exposed to. Young children don't have the capacity to understand that. We have to really explain things on a Mickey Mouse level in very simple terms. When we relate this information, your main job is to remain calm. So whatever you say, you should be able to relate this information in a calm way, and to project, first of all, your own safety, meaning the safety of your family unit. Because this is the antenna of the small child will be directed towards that. Are we in danger? Are you, my parents, in danger? Do you need protection? Do I need protection? It's very elemental at that stage. So keep in mind that this is your main job as a parent that wants to emotionally protect your young child, that you should project safety, calmness, and let them know we are safe here. The war is going on beyond the border. Here, it's a very different situation. How lucky we are that we live in this country, how fortunate we are that we can host refugees, that our country can host refugees, and so forth. We can come to other concrete kind of activities later on. Very important, don't expose your young children to adult news. They will not understand the emotional undertones. They will not be able to process war images of explosions, of destroyed buildings, of people in dire situations, of wounded people, of dead people. And so they will not be able to process it, and they will have nightmares and so forth. So please keep in mind not to have the adult TV on in the presence of those young children, and to inform yourself through these kind of media when the children are not around. When it comes to explaining the war, because this is obviously something that children will ask, what is war? Why is the war happening? And so on. Here are some examples that might help you to orient yourself, to tailor your own responses to your children. You might bring up concrete examples like, do you remember this kid who was a bully in your class or in your group? They did this and that, and they made this other kid suffer, and they took the school money, or they took the lunchbox away, or something like that. And then eventually everyone started to stand up against this bully, and then parents were informed, and the teachers were informed, and then everyone was basically protective against the bullied child and stood up against the bully. And this is basically what is happening now. There's this country and it's bullying the other country. And now we and many other countries are standing up against the bully and are trying to protect the one country that is bullied. Another standard sentence could be that unfortunately wars happen and have happened in the past and also happen today, that most of them are far away from here, from our country, from our region, but that unfortunately the current war is happening, depending on where you are, in Europe or across the border, and so on. Again, this should be said with an undertone of how lucky we are that we live in a country where no war is happening. Another information that can be shared when children ask, what is war? What is happening in war? To say that wars can destroy life in buildings. And when that happens, parents worry that something might happen to their children and then try to bring them to safety. And that this explains, of course, the stream of refugees, that often the men stay behind to protect the country, to stand up against the bully, so to speak, and that mothers bring their children to safety to another country because the parents worry about them and want them to be well. Another sentence, wars happen because country leaders are afraid or greedy, right? This is about the question, what do they want? Why do they start wars? Well, they're afraid, rightly or unrightly. Maybe they interpret the situation wrongly. So they're afraid that they would be bullied, that they will be attacked, or they're greedy. Like sometimes, people, sometimes children have enough, but they're still jealous of what other children have and they want more and more and more. And this can be another reason why country leaders attack other countries. Of course, it's important to emphasize that aggression and violence are never a real solution. Why? Because it makes the other people violent as well. When I'm violent against you, you will have a violent reflex, a violent reaction yourself. And so this is the cycle that never stops. Eventually, we have to stop the violence. This is the last sentence on this chart, to stop the violence and understand each other, to come together as the most important ways to end a war. The third example here on this chart is other people and countries have to stand up against violence. This is what we're doing now. I mentioned something like this before. Okay, so this is for an age group of about 10 and up. Up to 10 years old, in very simple terms, concrete examples, minimal information, respond to the questions that the children have and don't lecture them beyond that with information that you think is necessary in order to complete the image. When the children have more questions, they will ask you. They're usually curious. Okay, let's talk about an older age group, roughly 6 to a pre-puberty, pre-teen age, about 6 to 12 years old. Here, don't wait until the children ask you questions like as I said about, for example, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, that they might not even be aware of the situation. Here, it's important that you address it because we can be rest assured that they somehow have heard about the war and also are not able to process these information, the implications of war for their lives properly, even if they talk maybe to their friends and so on. So you actively go to the children, ask them how they feel, ask them what they have heard, let their questions come. Again, don't lecture them, be guided through their questions. Again, very similarly as the young children, also in this age group, you need to emphasize your own safety as the parents and the safety of the family unit, to emphasize the compassion for the victims and that the war is happening in another country. Those children in this age group, they will have some geographical rough understanding. So here it's useful to bring up a map. It can be digital, it can be a globe, it can be an old map atlas book that you might have at home, and show them where the war is happening, at which area and show them the neighboring countries where the refugees go. Also, at this age group, don't expose the children to adult news and war images, and use the child age appropriate news, the teen news that are available online on YouTube and major news outlets. They will have information tailored for children with, graphics, simple information. Watch it together with them, and then afterwards discuss it. The discussion will help them to process, to understand, to internalize, and will give rise to some questions that you can then answer. It is important when you do bring up those topics about war and so on. Children work in a slightly different way than older teenagers and adults. We are able to process things more abstractly, even though, of course, we also like to take action. This is very much true for pre-puberty, preteens, even more so. They will feel the tension, they will understand that something difficult, that something urgent is going on, and they will not be, it's not good for them to hold this tension in. So it's good to find an outlet for that, to find an action. Find it something age appropriate. It's always possible to light a candle of peace. It can be in the family. It can be also digitally. You can send a message with a GIF or with an image to whoever the child wants to send these images to, maybe grandparents, maybe extended family, maybe friends, and thus to have some sort of a symbolic gesture to contribute to peace. You can go to peaceful gatherings so that the child understands that it is not alone, it's not the family alone, that there is a shared sentiment, and that there is some sort of an, even though obviously there's something concerning going on, that there's an uplifting energy around them. Kids love to paint, so it's good to express what is going on with them in a painting, and be sure to include some uplifting, optimistic images or elements in those paintings. So maybe they want to depict the tension, but then remind them or ask them how they want to depict a solution. Some sort of a peace sign, maybe a dove, maybe nature, maybe sunshine, maybe the family, maybe a safe home, something like that, so that again the children are able to process both of these aspects, the problematic one and the soothing one, in a symbolic way. It will help them to process these burdensome, complex information. It's essential for kids at all age to keep the daily rituals. Don't have your daily interactions, the daily conversations centered around the war. Keep the meal times as much as possible. Keep up conversations about topics that you usually talk about, be it school, be it family, be it the weather, be it planning a trip to the zoo or whatever it is, so that also on that level, the calmness and the comfort is signaled to the child, and not just verbally, but basically showing that the daily structure as it was before, that symbolized and expressed the comfort, will go on normally. This is a very important element. Okay, a last word about teenagers 13 and up. For them, the picture and the approach changes. They don't need the comfort so much from the parents, even though it's good to not to burden them too much. For them, it is important to find independence from their parents. So to have diverse, to have complex conversations and arguments with them is much more an important point. They want to be included in mature discussions. They will have their own opinions. In fact, they might be very opinionated. They might have formed these opinions at school and with their peers. And your job is to let them talk and to challenge them. so that they can find their own position and basically can come through the conversations with you to a higher and better, more differentiated understanding of the situation. It's not worth to try to lecture them and to tell them what you think the truth is. They will make up their own mind anyway, so be their sparring partner in that sense. Be prepared that at this age, the children, the teenagers, will be more ready to express anger and aggression more than the younger children who might tend to react with fear. So teenagers might come with, simple solutions, just like, let's bomb the Russians or something like this. Be prepared that something like that would come, and challenge them by asking, what good would that do? What might be the repercussions? And then, you could include information about the arsenals, about, international treaties, the NATO, and so on, to let them kind of understand that there's a complexity behind these questions. And as mentioned before, that violence is usually not a solution that is sustainable, but that it harbors further violence. What is very important at that age, children and teenagers will probably get their information also online. It can be through their smartphones, social media, different media outlets, and so on. And to discuss with them and to explain to them that information doesn't have all the same degree of trustworthiness, that there are incentives for people and institutions to have biased informations, because basically media organizations and individuals, they want clicks and views. This is what benefits them. And this is always the bias that they might have, that the trap that they might fall into, that individuals and media institutions might be willing to disseminate information that tends more to get clicks than to be a trustworthy, reliable information. Thank you for your attention. This has been it for my short introduction. I hope that that it will support you to manage the family situations and the situations with the children. And let me know in the comments below if there are other questions or aspects that I have not covered in this short presentation. And good luck.